Hello again, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Director's Cut. I am Brad Keelor. I am the director of the Geo-Institute. That is why we call this show Director's Cut. If you are not familiar with the Geo-Institute, we are a technical society housed within the American Society of Civil Engineers. We have about 12,000 members, almost all of whom are geotechnical engineers and geologists, and almost all of whom are fun. You will meet many of them through this fine show at some point in the future. We have a very special Director's Cut today. They're all very special, but today we are joined for the first time by two guests. So we're going to see how this goes. They are related by marriage. They are coming to us live or recorded because you are watching this recorded from Berkeley, California. We have Dimitrios Zekkos. I'm not sure which side of the screen he'll be on, so I won't say that now. And on the opposite side of the screen, we have Adda Athanasopoulos-Zekkos. They are going to answer some fun questions for us today. If you are not familiar with the format, I will ask them 10 questions. Some are personal, some are professional. All are fun. Dimitrios and Adda, thank you for joining us today. Are you ready to have some fun?
Yes.
Yes, definitely. Thank you for having us and Happy New Year.
Yes.
Happy 2021. As you can see, it's also winter, and Dimitrios and Adda have shared they don't have winter in California, unless you live in like Eureka or someplace like that. So we will start today with the same way we start with everyone else. Describe your jobs in 45 seconds.
Yeah. Adda, you want to go?
Sure. So I'm a faculty member in the Civil and Environmental Engineering Department at UC Berkeley since last year. I've just completed my first year, most of it during a pandemic, but nonetheless. I work in geotechnical engineering, primarily looking at the performance of systems under natural hazard loads like hurricanes and earthquakes. I study other types of materials like gravels that are kind of a little bit outside of the normal material you would find in a textbook. And also more recently, I've been involved in figuring out how we can utilize advancements in sensing technologies to better inform on how these types of systems perform. And then this is, of course, my kind of day job, but at the same time, I'm co-parenting 3 wonderful children, which is also part of my duties.
Yes, and I'm an associate professor in the Department of Civil Environmental Engineering at UC Berkeley also, and I'm a geotechnical engineering, civil engineer, geotechnical engineer. I work on geoenvironmental engineering and geotechnical engineering. I work with a lot of my work involves in the most recent past involves sensing and robotics to understand better the system response of geotechnical infrastructure to natural disasters, natural hazards, global warming. And it's been, my interests have been evolving all the time. I also teach at the University of California-Berkeley, and I also co-parent 3 kids.
There would have been some issues there if you had said that you did not co-parent.
Yes, or if I completely omitted saying that, that would be a disaster.
So we'll get right into the fun questions now. This can be a joint one or an independent one. What is your biggest and best celebrity encounter?
So I don't know if I have met anyone really, like celebrity, but someone who is my celebrity, someone that I really like is, I don't know if you guys know the Fraser Crane show.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I'm a huge fan of that show. I have probably seen the series like 2 or 3 times. I don't know, maybe I'm on the 3rd or 4th. So I once went, I was in Los Angeles for a meeting, and I was in a coffee place, and Fraser's dad, his name is John Mahoney, Martin Crane, showed up, and he was walking normally because in the Fraser show he has a handicap, but he doesn't have it in real life. And so I saw him, like, he was standing next to me, but I didn't have the courage to talk to him. So that's the closest I've been to that. It was really exciting, though.
Adda, do you have a better one than that? Or worse, because sometimes bad celebrity stories.
Yeah, I know, right? So I have a two-part answer because I'm the geek of the family. So of course I have to one-up Dimitrios, but no. But well, I was going to say my one professional celebrity and then my one kind of more Hollywood celebrity. So I will never forget in 2007, I think the Geo-Congress was in Denver, if I'm not mistaken, but that's my first time meeting and talking to Ralph Peck. And so I was just completely starstruck by that, I have to say. And he was sitting in the front line when Ray Seed was giving the presentation of our papers that were focusing on Hurricane Katrina and the levee failures at the time. So that was really a really high moment for me. I was a PhD student at the time. And then Dimitrios may have forgotten, but we were on a plane going from Paris to Athens, and Ashton Kutcher was in the business class, and he kind of walked through just by down the hallway, the corridor of the plane, whatever. And he was probably going on his way, to one of the Greek islands or whatever for summer. But yeah.
Yeah, actually, I've forgotten that.
Those
I still feel closer to Fraser Crane's dad. So.
Yeah, I think Dimitrios might win this one, except for the Ralph Peck. The Ralph Peck is solid. I like that. So now one that you have to answer together. What is your biggest engineering disagreement? It can be a one-time thing. It can be something that's ongoing, maybe a feud that you're going to carry with you for the rest of your lives.
Yeah.
I don't think we will ever agree on what the right software is to print figures and plots. I think Dimitrios is a big Origin fan, and I can still pull off pretty nice figures in Excel, but he's after me for that, like always.
It's not going to be one of those things that you just give up on after so many years of marriage.
I know, right?
I don't think we have a big one. I will say that we work in some projects together, not in many, but in some. And I think when that happens, the students in the room and we are all talking together, and we often disagree on things when we first look at data, and I see it that way, and Adda sees it the other way, which is good. I think it's good for the student also, from a perspective of dynamics. The student may be thinking that, oh, they talk to the professor knows, and of course, whatever the professor knows says it's correct. And then you have now two professors that they disagree on the spot. And so I think then that actually brightens your horizon, saying, okay, I should have my own opinion about what the truth is on this topic. And I think it's kind of exciting, actually.
Yeah, and if you mix in there our Mediterranean style and our hand waving, it can get, a little bit intense at times.
Yeah.
That's good. Bring in the realism to the students too.
Right.
Yeah.
So another one that will need answers from both of you. What's the first thing you learned to cook, and do you still make it today?
Okay, I have a story about this. I'm a Boy Scout since very young, and my first food was out in the field trying to make a lentil soup, and we didn't put a lot of water in it. And so it actually started drying out and burning at the bottom. And so we had to eat, of course. So we gave up on the lentil soup, and we actually put oil in it and we fried it. And that was my first food. My cooking hasn't improved since much. Yes, and so I'm not particularly talented in cooking. I'm good experimentalist in the lab, but so I pay attention how I do things in the lab. But when I'm cooking, I'm not. It's all approximate. And so I'm just dropping, stuff in there without really paying particular attention. That doesn't work out very well, very often.
You can hold your own, though. You can hold your own. And I mean, for the record, he did learn to cook before me. I was the kind of the Greek girl raised by my mom with, this notion that, my job is to focus at my studying and my courses, and I should not bother myself with anything else household related. And then, of course, at the age of 23, I moved across the world, to the United States for my graduate study, realizing that I could barely boil an egg. And so I started, giving her phone calls, and every week I would master a recipe. And I think one of the first ones, if not the first one, was, of course, spaghetti, but with the bolognese sauce that we make in Greece, the ground beef, with tomato sauce. And I definitely make this, at least once a week because it is a family favorite. So, yeah.
Excellent. My one comment on this is, as a Boy Scout myself, There were never any lentils on any of our camping trips. I think as good as it got for Pack 127 in Lapeer, Michigan, or Troop 127, was like hot dogs and Oreos, which obviously we weren't cooking, and that was about as exotic as the weekend got. Maybe some soup, maybe corn on the cob on the fire. So Dimitrios, you're like 5 steps above what we were.
Okay, good to hear. It wasn't a success, but we ate. We were full by the end of the day, so that's good.
So the two of you are, of course, in Berkeley now, and prior to that, most people know you were in Ann Arbor at the University of Michigan. Those are two of the most liberal places in America. I think we just call it what it is. What doesn't shock you anymore after spending so much time in those two places that would probably be surprising to the rest of America?
Well, when I was living from here, because we both did our PhDs here, and then I worked for a consulting company, and then we moved to Michigan. I was told that Michigan was going to be very different than California. Well, in terms of how the politics and also the culture, because maybe Ann Arbor is liberal. I felt I was in a similar place to Berkeley, like Ann Arbor, Berkeley, different climates, different other differences exist, but from a perspective of I felt I was like in a very similar place, and it was. I think if you travel around, there you can see some differences, but within Ann Arbor, I think there are tremendous similarities. Frankly, the stuff that has surprised me mostly is the stuff I've been watching on TV more, rather than the places I've lived, the last period of time, frankly. But I think that was because it was 2020. 2021 is a whole other year, so it's going to be different.
I don't know. I think, when we were moving to Ann Arbor, people told me, oh, Ann Arbor, that's the Berkeley of the Midwest. And I mean, maybe they were, kind of jokingly saying that. But I have to say that there are a lot of similarities that I think made our transition very, very smooth. And, kind of coming back here, of course, the same. But I think kind of being between those two places, it's I mean, one of the things that I find just unbelievable is or interesting, I guess, is how people can make, pretty much any food and have it be dairy-free and gluten-free and this free and that free and the other free. And it's, you have to, they're very, very sensitive, of course, as they should be, obviously to allergies and, intolerances, at schools and daycares. And I remember, you have to kind of tune yourself into these things, right? Especially, in Greece, there's not a lot of talk about these things. And so one of the first times we had this potluck thing happening at our older son's daycare. He was the only one we had at the time. And I told Dimitrios, and I'm like, we have to bring something like a dish, a plate. And he's like, oh, I have the perfect one. We should take them a dish of baklava. And I'm like, are you serious? This is a peanut-free facility. But that's what he would have brought. So it kind of goes to show, how, but I mean, now I know, I've gone to a supermarket at midnight to find, a special type of cupcakes to take to school for one of the kids' birthday, and you really just kind of, go with it, of course, because it's important to do so. But that is one of the things that was very interesting to me at the beginning.
The trick, Dimitrios, is to make the baklava first and act like you didn't know about the requirements so that you can go get whatever you need to take to the school and you still get to eat the baklava.
Exactly, because nobody else is using it. Exactly, good point.
Oh, darn, we can't send that in.
Right.
We try.
So now there's one more question that we ask every single person on this show. How did you both first get involved with ASCE and GI? So
I think I've been hearing about ASCE specifically since I became a civil engineering student in Greece. ASCE is internationally recognized as a leader, and so there's lots of ASCE coming in for, and you're looking at something that's happening far away from where you live. But when I came to the US as a master's student at Berkeley, I think I immediately signed up for the Geo-Institute and just to watch what's going on. And in general, I have been raised from my parents and grandparents that it's a priority to give back to the communities that you're involved in, regardless of anything else that you're doing. There's never time in terms of, if you don't make a priority, it will not happen. And so I was immediately wanted to get involved, and I think I got involved first with the Geo-Environmental Technical Committee as a member, and I'm chairing that committee now. And since then, I've done a few other things. But I think giving back to the society is a very important thing, because the impact of that propagates into the future, to the future geotechnical engineers, because you're always building something new and further.
Right. Adda, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, when I came to the US, Dimitrios had already been a grad student here for a couple years. And so he kind of introduced me to the magical world of the Geo-Institute. And I think it was 2 years in that I attended my first Geo-Congress. The two of us went together, and I'll just never forget, that feeling of, seeing people up on the podium whose names you recognize from a paper you were doing as part of one of the class, or just, seeing them walk around, during the receptions. And of course, I never had the courage to walk up, and Dimitrios was always all over that. He would always grab me by the arm and say, this is not the time, to eat or drink, or, just talk to one of your friends. We have to go socialize and talk to people and introduce ourselves. And so now, I definitely, kind of in the spirit of giving back, I always try to kind of mentor accordingly, my own students, because now, I've seen how things look on the other side, and the fact that it's, I think, one of the best things that can happen to me if a student walks up to me to a conference, right, to introduce themselves and say, I've always wanted to talk to you. I mean, there's really no better thing for someone to tell you. And so it's, so for all the students watching, do it Dimitrios' way, and just go up, walk up to people and, say hi, because I'm sure that's going to be one of the highlights of the conference.
Unless it's John Mahoney, right? Because Adda, you should have been there to push him on and talk.
I know, yeah.
It was too much for me. But I think the revelation that I think Geo-Institute now has all these student programs that you guys have been doing, which I think have changed their society since I was a student in the beginning of 2000. And I think it was a shock to me to realize when I went to the first conference how many geotechs are, what the breadth of the profession is. And because geotech is always a smaller part of the entire department, so you think it's a small thing. And then you go to this Geo-Congress and you say, whoa, this is a huge community. And it's very exciting. I think it's the best recruiting tool for students to go to a conference like that, because they realize that's a future for you if you want to go that route. So thank you actually for leading in that direction. I heard
hopefully also it gets better every year.
Yeah, and I heard of Edka Vazanja's donation on this, which is very generous, and I hope it helps a lot in that direction. This is awesome.
For everybody watching, you've got another 9 months to make your contribution to Ed Kavazanjian's matching gift campaign. Go to geoinstitute.org, click on the button up at the top, make your gift. You might get something really nice, like a GI pin or something like that. So another question for each one of you individually now. What was the first thing you bought on the internet? I think for people about our age, I remember it was a CD. I did it in like 1995, and I couldn't believe when it actually showed up at the house like a week later.
Yeah, for me, I never had a credit card until I came to the US. And at that time, in 2001, eBay was a big thing. And the idea that you can bid on things and get stuff, it was really exciting. I don't remember what was the first one, but it was either one of the two, either an historical book, like history of engineering. I collect older books from the 19th century or beginning of 20th century, or a mineral, because I also had a collection of minerals.
I think it was a mineral.
Either of the two has to have been. Yeah. You remember?
For me, it was shoes. I hate to play into that, but it was, and it was through the magical world of eBay that again Dimitrios introduced me to, after we came here, and it was just, I mean, to me again, just this thought that you clicked on a link and there were all these things that people were selling and you could bid, and he taught me how to pick up the good sellers with the good reputation, and the good numbers and all that, and it was, I mean, it's, it feels like it was like in a different lifetime, and yet, yeah, here we are, but yeah.
But that's still, a lot of people won't buy shoes online to this day. So it shows, I think, you're a little bit of a risk taker if you were willing to do it. So now one that you're going to have to maybe come together on here, or disagree, and maybe this goes back to that disagreement question. What's going to have a bigger impact on the next 100 years of civil engineering? The introduction of new technologies or the need to mitigate and respond to disasters?
I hate to disagree with Adda, so why don't you go first, Adda, or maybe...
Yes, that is a tricky one. I think, so I'll say which one I think will happen, not which one I would want to see happen. But I do think that new technologies are probably going to be what makes the biggest impact. And I'm fine with it as long as they remain human and community centric. I'm a little bit worried that the newer technologies may bring excitement, of course, because kind of in the short term you see the positive impact they may have. But as with all things, I think it's just important to keep in mind that the reason why we're doing it, right? Perhaps to prevent future catastrophes from, natural hazards, or to make sure certain communities don't suffer more than others. I think this whole pandemic this past year that has further amplified, how the inequities basically that exist. This is why, I answer this way, because even though I think that technology obviously is a wonderful thing, I just hope that, whatever happens in a way that is done in an equitable way across and actually ends up really helping.
Yeah, I agree, but I will say that there are tremendous challenges coming up in our society. We actually see them already, climate change and all the natural hazards. And I think people's expectation have changed dramatically. In the 80s, and that's very important, we didn't want people to get killed. And that was okay. That was enough. You didn't want people to get killed. And we know how to do that, actually. We don't always do it successfully, but we know how to do it. But now the expectations are much higher about downtimes, the costs of insurance costs, and those performance requirements, communications, and those requirements the expectations are rising so much that it's creating new challenges about what we have to deliver. And I think technology will play a role in addressing that for sure.
See, you guys managed to do that without disagreeing. That kind of was a softball for you both there anyway. You had to note the way that question was worded. For both of you, what was your most significant professional failure, and what do you think you learned from it?
Adda, you want to go, or?
Sure, I can go. I think, and I'll say this because I feel it doesn't get discussed enough, and I think it can only help the younger generation. I'm being told right now that I'm mid-career, even though I still think that I'm young. But anyway, I'll play along with that card. But I think, especially in academia, people don't talk enough about how difficult it is when you get that first rejection in a scientific paper. And I think for me, the first time I had a paper rejected, it was a huge blow. I felt like this was a very big failure, that it was going to dictate the way things, may start happening from now on. You kind of go through a couple of very dark days, kind of questioning every decision you've ever made in your life. And then you realize, now that it's been, 10 years or whatnot since that happened, you kind of realize that life moves on, first of all, that it has probably happened to more people than you know. And the same, obviously, with proposals and with other things. And it's just something that, in the end makes you stronger. And, it kind of sucks when it happens, obviously, and nobody wants to see that happen. but it does help you to get a little bit stronger, a little bit more, I guess, careful and attentive to detail. For me, this was a paper that I was putting together and submitted literally a month after I had my first child, because I was kind of under this illusion that, life was going to go on like normal, and I was still going to be able to put in 100% in my work and 100% in my family. And I think, again, this is a very important thing to kind of say out loud and not feel that it makes you feel, weak. And some days you give it all to your work, and other days you give it all to your family or to yourself, for that matter. And that's fine. And that should be okay, and sometimes, that balance is a little bit off, and something like this happens, right? You put together something that, upon second look was not, to the bar where it should have been. And, it gets sent back, and then, you kind of pick yourself up and you go again and you fix it, and it goes through. So it's so that's what I wanted to kind of share, because I think that it's actually good when people share these kinds of stories. At least it always helped me, kind of feel a little bit better that, this is not something that will completely sidetrack me, but just, part of life.
Excellent. Yeah, I mean, you can see Geo-Congress, or one of our conferences, we don't put a constant parade of people up at the podium who are talking about their failures, and maybe that needs to change.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, definitely in engineering, we tend to emphasize the successes rather than the failures. And of course, there's the technical failures, but there's also the failures. I don't know if I will call them failures, but mostly, the challenges that you have along your career that essentially you're supposed to learn from and keep going. I have underestimated. I think, people may see a success like an award, for example, or some kind of publication, and they don't realize how many failures there are behind this. And we only see the successes. Oh, that's amazing. And I have, for my own PhD students, I have always actually been sharing that information. And I don't know if this actually sometimes disheartens them, but it's good to see all the path along the way, and not just the outcome, the successful outcome. One thing that I have learned, though, I wouldn't call it again a failure, but something that I have been evolving a lot and learning since I came to the US was my understanding of diversity issues and how important they are and how they're impacting mine, but not mine, others people's careers, basically. I think it's easy to say, oh yeah, I have my own problems, I have my own challenges, but there are some inherent issues that we as society, we as people, our biases, our own biases, sometimes we know there are biases, sometimes we don't even know that they are there. And watching, in general, my students, Adda, others, I think there is a lot that we can do. And actually, I feel we can all get more trained on that. So I will say that was in the early 2000s, I was oblivious. That would be the word I will use. And since then, I've been improving. There's more to learn, but I think it's something we all need to keep in mind of. It affects I think it has dramatic impact on who is in our team.
Absolutely. Excellent lessons, guys. Our final question, the final one always has to be a fun one. You have to put your Greek flag t-shirts on here. What aspect of Greek culture gets butchered in the United States? What Greek stereotypes did you find when you got here that you can either laugh at it or maybe it makes you angry? What do you got? Is Big Fat Greek Wedding not one of your favorite movies?
Oh, yeah. Adda, you want to start?
Picking up on that movie, I always say that's Greek Americans.
Well, yeah, that's Chicago, right? Greeks, right?
So I think for Greek Americans, actually, it's right, it's right up there with what how things would be. But yeah, I think Greeks, who have been, raised in Greece, are not as as flamboyant with everything that comes with the culture, with the Greek columns, in the houses and all that. But one of my pet peeves, would be when people would say, because wherever I would go in a new place, I would say, is there a place where you can get Greek food? And everybody would be like, oh yeah, so and so and so and so. And then you go and it's actually a Mediterranean food joint, and it's like, well, no, that's not what I meant. I'm not looking for falafel. I love falafel, by the way, no problem with falafel, but it's just not Greek food. So that was a pet peeve of mine, kind of this, they just kind of fuse the whole Mediterranean, all the Mediterranean countries into like this one cuisine. And even though there are similarities, there are also some differences. So.
Yeah, yes, I agree with the issue with the food is important. I think even the spelling and the pronunciation, which is gyros as opposed to gyros or all the other things that I have heard, and then how it's cooked and how it's made. There is a big diversity of how you make it, and it's different what we see here than Greece. But I think that overall, I think people have an image of Greeks from the Big Fat Wedding. I think that movie actually has influenced people, and there are similar, but it's what Adda said. Basically, it's more of a Greek American thing than a Greek.
I would say that is definitely true. But are you guys telling me then you don't have any statues in your front yard?
No.
All statues.
I will agree to the fact that every word does come from the Greek language. So.
And we're loud. That is definitely.
And we are loud. Yes.
Greek Italian. I think that we're loud when we talk. When we're in the office, many times Adda and I will be talking like regular talking, like the way we are now. And one of my friends will come and say, "Are you guys fighting right now?" Or because we're talking Greek, and it's the whole thing and animated and Greek words. And say, "Are you guys fighting now?" And no, it's just talking.
Permanent outside voices.
Exactly.
So what's here? We always have bonus questions at the end. What would be your number one Greek food recommendation? A Greek dish that maybe most Americans haven't tried that they should?
There are lots, actually. I think roasted lamb, but roasted is something that most people have not tried. It's different than lamb, and it's a tremendous experience to make it and actually eat it. And I think that's one of them for sure. Not to go to the classic ones, but yes, this is one.
Yeah, beyond the classic ones, and this comes to mind because we just made it last week for the first time after a while, was this food that we call fricassé. I don't know how to translate that, but basically it's, it's in the pot. You can either do it with lamb or pork, and then you put in chopped lettuce in, and it kind of just, like it would be spinach, but it's with lettuce and, the green onion and a little bit of dill. And then you just pour over a beat egg with lemon juice all over it, and just all comes together. It's just delicious. And I hadn't done it in a while, and we just all cleaned out our plates. So I'm going to be adding that to our menu. But that is one of those kind of, if you were to ask a traditional dish that you don't really see out, and it's really easy to make. So.
Excellent. Maybe you guys will have to be on the first episode of the GI cooking show when we get that started up.
Oh, I would love that.
So hopefully many of you know that Dimitrios was one of the conference chairs, or maybe the conference chair for the 2012 Geo-Congress in Oakland. Adda is our technical chair for the 2022 Geo-Congress that's going to be in Charlotte. Dimitrios, what advice would you give to Adda as she goes forward with this conference, which is undoubtedly going to be the finest Geo-Congress that's ever been held?
Yeah, well, state of the art and practice conference, that should be a tremendous conference again, as it was in 2012. I think it's an opportunity to show that how broad the profession is. There is a lot of stuff that is geotechnical engineering that we don't always think about. And so I would say to show the breadth, show the diversity, which is something we can do better this year, of also of the speakers and the backgrounds. And the third will be make sure that the topics that you select don't overlap with the theme speakers we had 10 years ago, because I think that would be great. The idea was there are so many more, so just stay away from those and choose something different. But that is my very minor advice, if I can provide that to Adda. Carefully.
Everybody out there in viewer land, you have 1 month left to submit your abstracts for the 2022 Geo-Congress in Charlotte. As Dimitrios said, it's a state-of-the-art, state-of-the-practice conference. It's going to be fun. Adda, Dimitrios, you survived all the questions. Everybody's made it through so far. So we have avoided all casualties in Director's Cut, which is excellent news. Again, welcome back. It's the new year. We have a full season of Director's Cut coming your way. I believe we will have something like 42 episodes this year. So this is the second one for the new year. Join us every Wednesday on our YouTube channel. Again, click the subscribe button. Again, click get notifications, and you will be notified every time we post a new video. Dimitrios and Adda, thanks for being with us today. Dimitrios, thanks for taking time away from the library there in the background.
Yes,
a lot going on.
Thank you very much for having us. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was lots of fun. Thanks for coming.
Thanks, guys, for joining. And we'll see everybody next week. Which is frequently. If you don't know anything about the Geo-Institute, I'm going to have to do this again.